I woke up a couple of days ago and I thought I had flu. Now, people tell you they've got flu when really they've only got a bad cold, because flu is awful. I've only ever had flu once in my life. That was years ago when my kids were young. We went and got a cottage, well, a little like log cabin in Wales. And when we got down there, my wife wanted to go to a chemist or something. And we sat in the car and I got this kind of feeling, this itchy, just this weird feeling. And within hours, I was in bed. Well, within a couple of hours I was in bed, and I spent the first 4 days of that holiday in bed, sweating, unable to move, sleeping, just felt terrible. And that was flu, and I've never had it since, and I never want to have it again. So I woke up this morning with these flu-like symptoms, but then over the course of the day, they kind of went off a bit and it just developed into what I think is a bad cold, but it left me with this awful pain in my neck and this pain in my shoulders, and it's not gone away, and that was like 2 days ago. And I thought, am I lying funny in bed? But then I thought, you're just lying. Anyway, it's like, no, I can't. It's like, has anybody ever had sciatica? If I've had sciatica a couple of times, when you have sciatica, you're like looking for a comfortable position all the time, and then you find a comfortable position, you think, oh, that's absolutely fantastic. And within about a minute, you have to move again. It's soul destroying, it's exhausting. And this is a bit like that, and I've got this pain in my shoulders constantly. And last night I was sitting and I was constantly just shifting position, trying to find a bit of comfort. I tend to put most of these symptoms down to old age, but I think that's only about 99.9% of the problem. I mean, how does everybody else out there cope with pain? I'm not talking about massive pain or death or anything like that. I'm just talking about those aches and pains that we all get at all ages, but we do get more as we get older, and just nag. They just sit there. They're not debilitating anyway. You can still go about your business, but you've just got this background thing nagging at you, this little pain. What do you do about it? I tend to push through. I very seldom go to the doctor. I remember after having my heart attack and not going to the doctor for ages, and then when I went for some blood test or other, he said, we never see you. And I said, well, that's because there's nothing wrong with me. I don't go to doctors. Doctors' waiting rooms are a hotbed for germs, and they're full of people who are ill, and who wants to be in company like that? So what I do, I put up with it, and I put up with it, and this might be for years, and I put up with it, and then eventually, when I realise it's not going away, I adapt my life to it. When I was 15, I went to a place in Wales called Newquay, not Newquay in Cornwall for all you people in the UK who know Cornwall, but Newquay in Wales. And I was 15, and it was a cottage on the edge of a cliff. I went with a mate, and we spent all that time throwing stones over the edge of this cliff. We were actually throwing them at seagulls, which was like about half a mile away, but we were throwing about 20 feet. So we were never in danger of harming anything, but we spent our whole time doing that, and I was 15. That is 55 years ago. And after that, I strained something in my shoulder, and I couldn't lift my shoulder up, and I still cannot lift my right arm up. And all I've done is adapt, and over the years, it's just become part of me, and it doesn't bother me. I had a job where I was forever getting hammered and battered. It was really physical, and my mum worked at the local hospital. She was in charge of the ECG department, the heart testing department, and I used to go to casualty, and they'll say, oh, Phyllis's lad's here, Nigel's here. I'll tell you what, Nigel, go and sit with your mum in their department, and we'll give you a ring when we're ready for you. And it was like that, and then I'd come out of there, like with all sorts of things wrong with me. I once hurt my wrist. I didn't break, yes I did, I broke my wrist once when I was working, and I had my arm in a pot for ages, but when I went to work with my arm in a pot, and since then, this left arm, it goes like that every so often, and there's nothing I can do about it, it's weak. So if I hold a pint, sometimes it'll go like that and I slosh ale everywhere. Same with a cup of tea, I have to be really careful, and there's nothing I can do about it. But I've adapted to it and I live with it, and I shouldn't have done, should I have done, I don't know. I once put, when I was on the site, my foot down a rabbit hole. And oh God, it hurt so much. I remember lying on the ground next to this rabbit hole, and the lad I was working with was over the top of me going, you've just turned green, now you've turned yellow. Now you've gone white. It was horrible, and since then, every so often, my ankle goes, and I'm like there, says, what with my arm? I'm like a circus act, and I adapt, and I put up with it, and I've put up with it my whole life. But then eventually things kind of catch up, don't they? And they add on to each other, so you end up with a bad leg, a bad arm, a bad shoulder. And it doesn't really matter when you're young and you've only got one or two of these. You can work around it because you're strong and fit, and you can compensate. But as you get old, it becomes a bit of a pain in the backside. Some people rush off to the doctor at the first sign. I mean, who's right and who's wrong? I don't tend to do that. I procrastinate, for one thing. I've spoken about that before, but I also think these things eat into my day. I've not got time to be going to doctors and waiting in waiting rooms and all that shenanigans, probably to be told, oh, just keep your eye on it or something, or it's just down to your age or some tosh like that. So I don't bother. I've got better things to do. My health, I'm at my age, it's going to be a bit iffy, isn't it? But I'm too busy. Life's for living. But who's right and who's wrong? Anybody out there? Do you sort it out as soon as you've got an illness or an ache and pain? Do you look at it? Do you think about it? Are you that organised that you get your head round it and sort it out and go to the doctor? And are you fit and well at 70, where I'm like some old crock that's been battered around? Yes, I've lived a very, very hectic physical life. I've always had physical jobs, and I had these physical jobs in the days when there was no health and safety. I worked on drilling rigs where I used to go in carpet slippers, no ear defenders, and just ended up smashing hell out of myself. I worked in 15 degrees below temperatures, and my wedding photographs, my fists are clenched because all my fingernails had turned black, and I lost all my fingernails with frostbite. And I think when you live like that, you kind of just put up with things because it's a nonsense trying to fix them. It's hard work trying to fix them. It's time consuming trying to fix them. But the trouble with that is you end up in a bit of a mess in older age. My mum used to say to me when I was a kid, and I used to run round with not even when I was in my 20s, I'd go to work with t-shirts on halfway up my back in freezing weather. And she'll say, you'll suffer for that in later life. And I did. So all the people who worked in offices, they probably don't. But then again, they weren't working physically. So do they have other problems because they led a sedentary lifestyle? I don't know, but I do think that the kind of physical pain and damage you put up with in younger life does come back to kind of haunt you, because most of your life you don't think about it because you adapt round it, and it's only when you get older that these things start to nag away at you. Like this pain in my neck now, I won't go and have it sorted, I'll put up with it, and it'll probably go away, but then it might not. So what I'll do, I'll just learn to live with it, like a lot of us do. And we shouldn't. Or should we? So I'll probably just live with this pain in my neck, ignoring it and adapting to it until it comes to a point where I can't look left without turning my whole torso. and then I'll look left by turning my whole torso, and then that will become the norm. Anybody who's young and watching this, don't put up with it. Don't put up with it, otherwise you'll end up like me, like an old crock full of aches and pains who's just put up with it and adapted to it, and now it don't really bother me because it's all a bit too late. And as long as my eyes work and I can look round at this countryside here, and my little dog's limping because she jumped out of the car and squealed and hurt her leg, and now she's limping, so we're having a short walk this morning. A few people have mentioned it. Oh, Molly, what's the matter? And just look at her, see what you think. Come on, little Molly. Look at your little limp. It's a shame. There's a bench coming up. We're going to sit on that for 10 minutes just to give her a rest, and then we're going to make our way back home. She'll probably be all right. She's an old lady. I don't think it's broken or anything. It's just twisted as she's jumped out of the car. So I'll let her rest it today, and then we'll see how she is later on in the day. I can't keep taking her to the vets. She hates the vets, and whenever we go into the vets, she's sick, she's shivering, she's dribbling. I'm not putting her through that. I refuse to put her through that. But I'm sure we'll just see how it goes. Look at us both. She'll adapt to it. I adapt to it. She'll adapt to that. In fact, this is what animals do, isn't it? And we're just animals, aren't we? We're just adapting like everything else. We adapt to circumstances. So I'm going to adapt now to sitting on this bench and gazing into the middle distance and enjoying the day. So we shall see you all on the flip. Peace and love.